Guys, naka-live na tayo, please.
Iwas pila at walang pagod na pamimili? Posible! Palengke na ang lalapit sa lugar mo. Hatid ng mobile palengke ang mas pinadali at convenient na pamimili ng mga essential foods ng walang hassle at pagod. Siguradong sariwa at bagong mga pagkain. Makakabili din sa mobile palengke ng top delicacies ng iba't ibang probinsya. Available sa Metro Manila, Calabarzon at Central Luzon. Bumisita at umorder na sa aming online store and get your essential foods delivered to you.
morning. May I request everyone to please settle down as we are about to start our program at exactly 10 a.m. A few reminders: we are requesting the participants to please open your camera and to be mindful with your audio. Again, good morning. I request everyone now to please settle down as we are about to start our program at exactly 10 a.m. Now, a few reminders. We are requesting the participants to please open your camera and to be mindful with your audio. Thank you. To officially start the program, let us put ourselves in the most holy presence of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, help me remember what a difference it makes when I make time with you a priority in my morning. Awaken me in body and spirit each day with a desire to meet with you and to hear you speak words of affirmation, assurance, and wisdom over my heart as I prepare to go into my day. In Jesus' name, Amen. To all the viewers from our Facebook pages and to the participants who are in a Zoom, good morning. I'm sure everyone is excited about insightful and informative webinar that we will be having this morning. But before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Chino, and I will be your host for this morning. To all our active participants, please type in the chat box your school and where you come from. So for example, Chino, Far Eastern University, Metro Manila. So kindly chat in your chat box your school and where you come from. All right, you guys can chat now. And good morning, Mary Jane. Good morning, Karina. From Tarlac State University, from, of course, Tarlac. Era, from Batangas State University. Wow, we have really a diverse culture here in this audience. Mary Jane from Northern Bukidnon State College. Joanna Grace Andres from Mariano Marcos State University. Wow, ang daming nating participants ha, nakaka-excite sa mag-start sa program na ito. Alright, feeling ko everyone's very excited to start this program. To officially start this webinar, I will be giving some few remarks. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to our awaited webinar, Recruitment Strategies, How to Attract and Retain the Right Top Talents. Surely we will learn a lot more in this webinar and gain you insightful tips on how to attract the right people in the right time and in the right place. Of course, I'm sure that all of us are curious on now about the background of our speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Mrs. Beethoven. She is a recruiting leader at Iron Ox. She is now based on San Francisco, California, United States. Studied BS Information Technology in Northwest Samar State University. Excuse me. An Associate of Arts and Science. Network Security in Health College, San Juan. She is also changing lives, one reg at a time. Let's give a round of a virtual applause to Mrs. Beethoven. Good morning, Ma'am Beethoven. The virtual stage is yours, and we'll be right back after your discussion.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen so I could share the presentation. connection. Sorry about that. Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Sorry, give me 1 second. For some reason, I can't share my screen.
All right. Meanwhile, we're waiting for the guest speaker fixing their presentations. So once again, welcome. Gino.
Good morning, everyone. Ayan. So welcome back muna. So while we're waiting, we're experiencing technical difficulties. Can you please chat your favorite emoji in the chat box while waiting? Ayan. When I say energy check, you can chat your favorite emoji to see your feelings for today.
Okay na?
Energy check. Ayan, ang daming excited ngayon sa program natin, ha?
Naka-co-host ka actually. Naka-co-host ka na. Sige. Sige. Oo. Yes, pero may kitay mo email kasi may request na kuan na tawagan ko yan na si Angel. Ay approve ang request.
Okay. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you for bearing with me with the technical difficulties. Can you guys hear me okay? I can actually not see myself, so I can't see anyone. So, yeah, I just wanted to welcome you in today's presentation. Again, my name is Beethoven-Sabar. I actually have a different topic today. It's actually called US Recruitment Overview and Taking the Next Step in Your Career. When I was creating the content, I felt that talking about recruitment strategies is not really super applicable given the audience today. And so I wanted to impart a little bit of my experience and also share a little bit of what's happening here in the US and how's the talent acquisition space is recovering from a very challenging year. Next slide, please. Okay, so I just wanted to set the stage. Again, my name is Beethoven. I've been in recruiting for about 10 years, and most of my experience are in the US. I have hired for a bunch of different roles. One of my favorite positions that I've worked on are the positions in life sciences. So I've recruited for scientists and chemists and research assistants. And it's really fascinating. The marriage of technology and biology fascinates me. And so I've also worked on positions in, bioinformaticians and data scientists. And then I've also worked on supporting technology. So I've recruited, positions in software development and also in IT, in UI and UX, and in DevOps. And then on the top of that, I've also supported GNA position, which GNA stands for General and Administrative. So that covers people operations. Here in the US, we're actually trying to stay away from HR. So most of the companies are calling people here. So that includes also facilities and real estate, engineering and operations, and also supported hiring in business development, in sales and product management. I've worked also in a fast-paced environment, so both small and startup companies all the way to supporting Fortune 500 companies. And my experience also includes supporting retail, biotechnology, media and e-publishing, finance, and very recently a company which is dabbling around agriculture and technology, which is also very fascinating. I wanted to point out just a caveat for the audience today. I don't have any experience hiring or recruiting outside the US. So if you guys have any questions around how to, how to get actually to, apply to other countries outside the Philippines, I don't have any experience. So the topic that I'm actually going to be covering today is mostly the hiring here in the US, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Yeah, so next. Okay, great. So this is our the topics that we're going to be covering today. So just a quick overview. We're going to talk about a glimpse to the US labor market, like what's happening here. And as you know, it has been a very challenging year because of COVID. And so there's definitely a lot of change. And, we're still trying to adapt and also trying to figure out kind of what's, what will be the future look like. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of people who lost their jobs. And there's also a lot of people that are trying to get back to the market. And then I'm also going to talk about like what are the things that employer cares about. As you can see, in the news, there's a lot of shift to remote work. How's that affecting the employers right now? Here in the US, there's a lot of labor shortages, and it's actually pretty surprising given that there's a high unemployment rate, but there's also a lot of employers that are looking to fill their open roles. And what does the employment outlook look like? What does the outlook look like for next year? And what are the challenges? And then I wanted to talk about why should you care about all of this. I wanted to touch on, is international job right for you? And also, how do you make yourself more marketable? How do you prepare yourself in taking the next step in your career? And so we're going to talk a little bit about interview techniques, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. I wanted this to be very interactive, so I don't want to be talking by myself for the next hour or so. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to chime in. I also love to hear your thoughts, your feedback. So let's dive in. Next slide, please. Okay. You can see throughout the presentation, there's actually questions that I put in between slides just to kind of facilitate some kind of conversation, and also, solicit your thoughts, your questions, your feedback. And so I wanted to open up the topic of with this question: how many languages do you need to know to communicate with the rest of the world? And I also have a fun fact for this. So there are about 7,139 languages spoken today. There's roughly 40 languages are endangered, and just about 23 languages account for half of the world's population. So as you can see, the world is a complex place, and communication is very important. So for you to be for you to stand out, communication is key, and also and just kind of making sure that you kind of practice that and in a daily basis. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is a map of the U.S. So as you can see, I'm in California right now, and so there's U.S. is such a big place and such also a diverse place to be, and because of the COVID-19, it actually changes employment, and employment has not recovered yet. So right now, there are about 8.6 million considered out of work in the US. But in contrast, there's about 10 million job openings. So there's a lot of open positions right now. And surprisingly, there's about more than 1 million jobs that are open. And employers right now are having a ton of difficulty filling those roles, despite of high unemployment rate. And so you're going to be asking, like, why is that? Why employers are having difficulty filling their open roles? And one of the main reason of all this is because of the virus. COVID-19 devastated a lot of the people here in the US, and there's a lot of people who died and got sick. And that actually affected a lot of different industries across the country. And I've been following the news, and it's not only in the US. And I bet there's a lot of people that are actually still struggling, today, of getting back and gaining back their jobs. And so here in the US, there is a great resignation that's happening. And that means there's a lot of people that are quitting their jobs purposely. And there's a lot of reasons why. One of the reasons is because of burnout. One of the reasons is half of the women in the job market are actually choosing to stay home to take care of their little ones because of either the school is closing or because of the fear of the virus. There's also a lot of people, the older people who are currently working, choose to retire early. Is that because they felt that they have the opportunity now to stop working while they still can? And so there's a lot of like different personal reasons, and we're seeing a huge uptick of people, leaving their jobs, and so that left employers scrambling and trying to fill those open roles. Next slide, please. Okay, I have another fun fact. So since we're talking about recruiting here, how did the recruiting industry begun? You'd probably be asking, like, how did all the recruiting space begun? And it actually begun like way back early on, ancient times, when Egypt and Greece and Rome are trying to recruit soldiers to go to war, and also the positions that are open while people are actually during the World War II, where people are kind of fighting and trying to and that means that there's a lot of open positions that are left open, and so that kind of the started of the modern recruiting industry. And it's really fascinating, and if you have time to kind of look it up, I would really encourage it, and kind of learning more about how all of this began. Next slide, please. Okay, so before I talk about what employer cares about, I wanted to pause for question. Do you guys have any question at this point? Okay. Okay, so let's move on. What are employer cares about? So as you can see, there's a shift to remote work. And remote work is here to stay. I'm not sure if you've been following the news, but there is a new variant of COVID-19, which is called Omicron. And there's a lot of discussion early on here in the US on how would the employers will react with the new variant. And it sounds like the variant is highly transmittable, like more transmittable than the Delta variant. And so that will definitely affect how employers are trying to pull their employees back to their normal workspaces. Here in the US, there's also a lot of discussion around how they can motivate their employees to stay engaged and also make sure that innovation is happening. And so a lot of companies felt that a face-to-face interaction with your team, with your manager, and with the rest of the company actually help facilitate that innovation. But it's also proven that there's big companies like Google, Facebook, which is called Meta now, are fared really well during the pandemic when all of their employees are working from home. And so there's also a pull and tag between employees and employers of how they're actually thinking the work dynamic of working remotely and working on site. And no one has the answer right now in terms of what will the future look like. But what's certain is that remote work is here to stay. And because of the virus as well, employers have the option on where they can hire. Here in the US, because there's also a lot of people that are moving to cheap labor markets. In California, there's a really high cost of living here. And so I know some of my friends or known associates that actually move to different state. It's because it's actually much cheaper. You can get a really good a really good house in a much cheaper, and you can still continue working from home. And so there's definitely a lot of options right now, and also that opens up the employee pool of where can employer can actually find their workers, which is very exciting, because that will actually give a lot of freedom for both employers and employees to kind of choose where they wanted to live, and also while employers can also still tap the talent market, the talent pool that they're looking for. And then
Wala na, yun ang kuhay ganit update eh. Ano man siya, idugong daw sa pang birthday niyo mo, yol.
And so job growth has been also growing steadily. But as I mentioned earlier, employment has not recovered yet, and it will not recover soon. It will actually grow steadily, and with the and because of COVID-19, we will see how that actually continues. And here in the U.S., and I'm not sure in the Philippines, there's a labor shortage that will actually persist despite of the high unemployment. Here, there is an unemployment support that actually been provided by the government, and that actually expired last September. And so there's also a lot of fear of getting back to work because of the virus that actually prompted people to take or have the option of not to work. And so there's a lot of like different factors that's happening that's affecting the employment space. And then some industries will not also recover this year or next year. The in-service industry, the hospitality and tourism are actually started to open up. I've been actually trying to I've been trying to plan our holiday vacation, and everywhere I look, it's all booked. People are very excited to go out, excited to get back to some normalcy, which, here in the US, everything is started to open up, which is a huge relief for everybody. But still, there is still some, cushion around making sure that you can go out there safely. And there's also a lot of consideration about how these companies like hotels are actually staffing their team, because a lot of again, going back to the labor shortage, it's been a really hard time for employers to either get their employees back or find and fill their open roles. Do you guys have any question before I move on?
Miss, I have one question po.
Sure.
What are the pros and cons of a remote work setup?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of pros. One pros for sure is kind of the flexibility of kind of scheduling your work around your personal schedule. Like for example, for me, you can actually plan your day in a way that's actually kind of works for you, depending on how much flexibility you have. You actually are more productive. Honestly, in my experience, I feel like I can actually done so much work when I'm at home. Like I don't have to spend hours commuting back and forth. And I feel like I'm I can actually get done, a lot of work with a very short amount of time. There's definitely cons. A lot of people felt Zoom fatigued, and even like for folks that have been meeting in a daily basis, just looking at their screen and trying to connect with their team. And that's where also employers are trying to pull their employees back to the office, because they felt that, building relationship foster innovation. And so for companies to be successful, their employees need to be on site. But we've also learned a lot from last year that even people are working from home and they're not, they're not physically working on site, that they can still be productive. And so no one can argue that. But one of the cons as well is again kind of going back to like building relationship, because if you're actually on site and working in the office, you always have that opportunity to you just walk up to your coworker and ask the question. But when you're working remotely, like there's this. I mean, technology nowadays is very easy. You can Slack someone, you can text someone, you can call someone, but face-to-face interaction doesn't really. Or the Zoom interaction or the online interaction doesn't really equate to kind of a face-to-face interaction. So that's where kind of the work dynamic is changing.
Thank you so much, Miss.
Yeah, no problem. Any other question? Okay. Let's move on. So I wanted to hear your thoughts. How did COVID affect your career? I bet all of you, it looks like you guys are coming from like different school. And I bet you guys are most of you are still, I believe, a lot of like the schools in the Philippines are still shut down. And so I wanted to hear, like, how did COVID affect your career if you're working, or how did it affect your study? And if you can share your experience and thoughts.
I think I want to share also my experience during this COVID. So I'm currently a student, or an undergraduate student. So I'm still really currently having a hard time coping up in this pandemic, and especially that we are still having restrictions and online classes. So one of the challenges is Zoom fatigue, like what you've mentioned earlier, po. And sometimes it is very draining and really tiring. And sometimes like the bed is just there beside you and you just want to sleep while doing the online class. So having a hard time focusing and concentrating on tasks. That's why these are the challenges that I experienced during this pandemic, po, Miss.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I completely hear you. Zoom fatigue, and when you're actually not in school and not in front of a blackboard and not in front of your teacher or sitting next to your classmate, it's really hard to make sure that you're actually doing a lot of the tasks that you need, depending on kind of your personality and your kind of your also your interests. And so that a lot of, like, I know for a fact that a lot of the students really struggle because of the pandemic. And so you commend all of you for keeping up with your studies, for participating in this kind of conversation, and also for showing interest in terms of learning new things. So I'm super impressed. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Miss.
Yeah,
Miss,
anyone?
there are also comments here in the chat box. Would you mind if I can read them, po, Miss?
Sure.
Catherine Campos said, I made a big shift. I've been working from service industry restaurant for 6 years, but because of COVID, now I became part of the academe, which is more stable. And Joanna Grace Andres says, I experienced a lot of breakdown moments and I'm having a hard time to focus with doing my tasks given to me. Plus the unstable internet connection in our place. So it's really affecting us, each and one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just the challenge of technology and connectivity, right? Like if you don't have the fastest internet connection, it also hinder you of like getting your job done, and also just kind of have that set up at home, just making sure that actually help you complete your tasks. And I know it's super challenging. So yeah, good luck to all of you. Next slide, please. Okay, so why should you care about this? So there's a chat that I've seen in the in the chat section that was talking about like hopefully we can tackle or touch kind of Philippine recruitment setup. Again, I don't have the experience in recruiting or hiring in the Philippines. I wish I have. But I think there's always a connection of how employment is happening here in the US and how it actually trickles down to the rest of the world. And all of us, one thing that I've learned about COVID-19 is that we're all interconnected. All of us our lives are all interconnected, and the pandemic will not be over if it's not over for all of us. And so I wanted to give you an idea of what's happening here in the US and how employers are reacting, how kind of what's happening in the talent acquisition space, and hopefully you can pick some nuggets out of those and apply to your current situation. And also kind of, maybe that will also inspire you, or maybe this will also help you kind of take the next step in your career. Next slide, please. Okay. So there's this question, is international job is right for you? And so not everyone is actually interested in going abroad, or not everyone feels that that's the right step in their career, and that's okay. I know there's a lot of different opportunities. I've actually worked in the Philippines as well before I came here, and so I have a little bit of experience of working there. And so as you think about, potentially working elsewhere, there's definitely a lot of pros to it. There's also a lot of things to consider. One of the really great things about going outside the Philippines and going outside your comfort zone is having or gaining different experiences. And that's really true. Experiencing different culture, experiencing different way of living, and also being exposed to like different ideas. One thing that I really value is when I got the opportunity to go outside the US, I felt that I was reborn. And that's a little bit of a cliche, but it actually opened my eyes to like different possibilities, and also education. I feel like I've learned so much and discovered myself when I actually went abroad. It's not only because of the challenges that I faced, but it also teaches me a lot of resilience. It teaches me courage. It teaches me confidence. It teaches me a lot of social skills. And all of the experiences that you will gain outside, in the Philippines or elsewhere, will actually expand your resume. It will actually add a lot of it will add a lot of like the different roles and responsibilities that you play in your career, and will eventually hopefully get you to a place where you want it to be. If you wanted to be a manager someday, if you wanted to manage a team, if you wanted to take increasing responsibility, that's up to you, but that will actually expand your career as you go. As I mentioned earlier, going abroad will also teach you adaptability and independence. It's no joke going going outside the Philippines. It's tough. It's very challenging. Being away from your families, being away from your friends, and being in a foreign place. There's a lot of challenges that comes with that, and those are the things that you need to consider. One thing is language barrier. Wherever you go, people will speak different language and communicate differently, and so how would you prepare yourself for that? How would you prepare how to make sure that you can actually communicate effectively, but also at the same time communicate in a way that you could actually land a great job. And so you have to think, what are the communication skills that I need to learn if I wanted to go outside the Philippines? And also learning about economy, culture, and politics. All of this plays a part that affects you. Depending on where you're going, if you're going to go here in the US, economy is right now during this time, it's a little bit tough. There's a lot, the employment is still trying to recover. There's a lot of open jobs. If you're not picky, you'll definitely find something. But there's still a lot of restrictions and there's still a lot of uncertainty. And so you have to be mindful of that. You also have to be mindful of culture. People think differently. People will, are used in doing certain things. And also politics are very different here compared to the US. And so that's also something that you have to consider. One thing that's also very important is how will you obtain a work permit and a visa? And so if you're planning to go, somewhere else, I think this is actually the first step of like trying to secure that possibility, and also making sure that you actually understand what you're getting into. There's a lot of and I know there's a lot of challenges around this topic, and so just do some research about employment agency or openings that could potentially provide you the work visa, so you could travel and and move overseas. And then all of this will also be will trigger a lot of changes. And so, if you have family back at home, if you have, if especially in the Philippines, family are very close knit, you will feel a lot of homesickness. When you're actually in a foreign place, you might not have friends yet. And so all of this, make sure that you're prepared emotionally, and also at the same time, making sure that you have some plan in terms of, how would you actually rebuild your social network outside the Philippines. Any questions?
I have one again po, ma'am.
Yeah.
So some Filipinos experience discrimination in an international setting, in an international workplace. So have you experienced this kind of discrimination, and what are your tips to handle this kind of discrimination?
Yeah. Here in the US, there's a lot of companies thinking about diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. It's a shortcut for DEIB. A lot of employers are actually trying to, they understand that for companies to be successful, they need to hire a diverse set of talent. And that's where recruiters comes from. Like for us to help companies have a diverse team, we need to find a diverse set of people. And I'm trying, and I know I'm going to get to the question about discrimination. And I mentioned diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. Is that because here in the U.S., despite a lot of like discrimination to minorities, like myself, like you, there is an idea around equality, which I really appreciate here in the US. As you can see in the news, there's a lot about, you can see like Black Lives Matter or any lives matter. It's not only Black, but, everybody matters. There's a lot of, those are very strong around here, despite of a lot of opposing ideas. Like for me, I did not experience direct discrimination, but I feel like it's harder for me to get promoted because I'm not white. And that's just a reality. There's a lot, when you're actually, being, being a woman of color like myself, there's still a lot of, prove yourself situation where I have to step up. I have to prove my skills and I have to prove my worth. And I have done that successfully in my past roles, which I'm lucky. And I think if you are faced in a situation where you feel discriminated, there's a lot of ways to handle that. One idea would be, just standing up and speaking up. You could always be polite. You could always be tactful. And you could always, whatever that kind of situation, whether it's subtle, whether it's super offensive, you could always take the high road. And so, being the big person and, one of the favorite thing that I've heard, I'm not sure if you've been following Michelle Obama, but one quote that I really like about what Michelle said is like, if they go low, you go high. And so if you find yourself discriminated, don't feel disheartened. Continue the good work that you're doing and, still be kind and respectful, and show them that, they're, show them why they should not discriminate you.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about how to prepare yourself. So there's definitely a lot of ideas out there. And one of the things that helped me in my career is actually building my own personal brand. Nowadays, everything is online, right? You could always Google yourself and see what's attached to your name. And it's very easy. Everything, social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, everything is super accessible. And so you could actually capitalize on that. You can actually create your own personal brand. But before I talk about, creating your personal brand, let's talk about trends first. So for you to, for you to be informed and for you to understand what's actually happening, you need to keep up with the trends. Like, what are the trends what are the job trends that are happening in the Philippines? What are the job trends that are happening outside the Philippines? What interests you the most? What are the trends that you felt like very passionate about? And so just staying informed. And nowadays it's very easy, right? There's Google, there's the internet. You could always Google things. You could always find information. And then one thing that will also help is gaining skills, upgrading your skills, acquiring new experiences. And so there's a lot of like different set of skills. So there's skills that are technical that you could actually acquire through training, through school, through college. But there's also a lot of interpersonal skills that are very, very important that actually trumps even technical skills. And one of those interpersonal skills is actually speaking and whether it's public speaking, whether it's, communicating to your team or just a normal daily interaction. And so honing that skill in a daily basis and making sure that you have the right communication skill will actually take you to further places. And so just being mindful of how you can actually acquire those skills and how you can actually develop them, whether not in a formal setting, maybe, reading books, maybe, picking up, a certain topic that you're really passionate about, and researching them and learning more about them. So this is actually one of the kind of key things in preparing yourself, acquiring new skills, acquiring new experiences. And then going back to building your brand, you have your own personal brand. You represent yourself online, you represent yourself in your community. And so just being mindful about how you actually project yourself. How do you project yourself online? How do you project yourself in person? And having that and being aware of that will actually help you build a strong presence. Whether in person or online. If you love social media and you love sharing things, just making sure that your personal social media is actually private and locked and only be shared with your friends. A lot of employers right now actually Google candidates, and so whatever impression they will pick up from your social media will affect your chances of getting hired. And so just being mindful of that too. And then when you have the ability to actually build your brand online, regardless what profession you're targeting or trying to be, there's always the opportunity to showcase your best work. For example, if I'm trying to be a photographer, I could always open, I could subscribe for like a website or opening like a portfolio online where I could actually show a series of pictures that I've taken, kind of my approach, my work. So you could always do that as well. One thing that I've also done early on in my career is to actually volunteer. There's a lot of volunteer opportunities here in the US. I'm not sure if there's volunteer opportunities in the Philippines, but there's always an opportunity for you to gain those much needed skills through volunteer. And I bet now, because of the pandemic, there will be a lot of remote volunteer opportunities as well. So, always showing up and raising your hand will definitely help you gain those experiences and skills. And then networking, seeking out professional association. There's always networking is always a powerful thing. Even and the digital age where people are all online, there's always a power of connection. So if you have the opportunity to meet professional like you, maybe someone who is already working, or someone who can be your mentor, that could really help you take your career to the next level. And one of the most important thing is knowing yourself. Like, what are the things that you like to do? What are the things that you're passionate about? Was there any mission or values that you care about that you wanted to reflect on your work? So thinking about all of those things, and applying those as you take your next career. Do you guys have any questions?
I think I have this. It's a little bit a personal question, Miss Beethoven.
Sure.
I read the credentials is that you've taken up information system. How are you able to transition to the human resource capital management?
Yeah. You could always use any technology right now. There's always a good blend of technology to any subject matter, or any subject, or any disciplines. For example, I mentioned about being part of a biotechnology company, which they actually leverage technology, which automation, robotics, artificial intelligence, and they apply that to life science, which is pretty fascinating. In my situation, the opportunity of getting into talent acquisition presented itself when I started looking for work here in the US. I was actually going to school at night, and I was trying to find like a day job to support my schooling. And I got an opportunity to work with a recruiting agency that actually teaches me a lot of the skills that I have. I'm so grateful for them. When I actually came here, I cannot even barely make a sentence. So there's a lot of like the communication that I have to work out. And also just the cultural difference, the cultural difference. I've struggled a lot when I came here. It's just I've been in abroad for a while. I have my own share of challenging experience, but when I came here, it's completely different. And so it takes me a while to orient myself, and also it took me a while to get familiar with the difference, the different dynamic of living here. And so talent acquisition actually is not the first choice. It's not the first choice for me as a career, but I fell in love with it eventually. It actually, it helped me. It actually helped me meet a lot of people. It also helped me gain the skills that I have. And you could always apply, any of your technical skills to any different, disciplines, as I mentioned before. Is that because nowadays there's always a good blend of technology, and they, companies are actually leveraging technology to get stuff done. So if you, for example, if you're in IT right now, if you are trying to get more computer skills, whether it's hardware, it's software, it's always going to be applicable to whatever career you wanted to pursue. Did I answer your question?
Yes, Miss. I'd like to share because I'm still thinking of what career I should take. So I think one of my fears is that I'm not really entirely sure if this is the right career path for me. So thank you for the question.
Absolutely. Next slide, please. Okay, so thinking about challenges and thinking about kind of discovering your path and being an exploratory in an exploratory mode. What are the biggest challenge that you faced in your career? Any takers? Yeah, I know a lot of you might be on mute. You could always chat your thoughts, your question in the chat portion. And one of the biggest challenge that I faced in my career, I think I've mentioned that already earlier about the cultural difference. That has been a huge challenge for me, adjusting to working here and abroad, kind of gaining the right skills, and also adjusting to a new lifestyle that always that actually been a very challenging for me when I was trying to establish my career. And so if you have any experiences, you have any thoughts, feel free to share it in the chat section. And if we have time later, we can read it. Next slide, please.
I think, Miss, we have one volunteer who would like to share.
Sure.
It's Sir Rafi Nulyar. Hi, Rafi.
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ma'am Beethoven, and to the host, Sir Chino, and the rest of the participants. I am Rafi. Actually, I am currently designated as the Human Resource Management Officer of the Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University. And just to answer the question from our resource speaker, our subject matter expert with what is the biggest challenge that I face as a human resource management officer maybe is actually how am I going to deal with the different behaviors of the employees of the institution? Because in psychology, in order for you to deal with this kind of people, with this, because we are dealing with diversity. So they said that you need to have, if you have 500 employees, so you need to have 500 kinds of behavior in order for you to deal with this kind of people. So for me, that is one of the biggest challenges that I am facing right now. How am I going to deal with this kind of people? Because some people, some employees are actually so demanding, but then but when we say if we are going to know what are their contributions in the institution, then they cannot say something that could help the institution. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, and good luck. Being an HR manager is not easy, and taking care and supporting employees. And so I wish you all the best.
Miss, I'll be also reading from the chat box. Sir Dale said, a lot of application rejections, but what I did is check myself and focus on how can I make my skills grow, and of course, never stop trying. I'm glad that I am now part of the academe where I really feel at home. That's really nice to hear, Sir Dale. I think I would also like to share that my biggest fear, rather, is that the fear of uncertainty, because of course that with the technology developing, we might lose our jobs, especially with the artificial intelligence. So maybe there might be one day wherein the artificial intelligence or AI might take over the talent acquisition, since they can program such algorithms to detect the right people in the industry. So yeah, that's it, Miss.
Yeah. Yeah, to Dale, I wonder what are the rejection reasons. So maybe you could find out like what are the reasons that you're getting rejected, and maybe you could, if someone can give you a constructive feedback, maybe that's something that can help you kind of take the next step. And then, and to you, Tino, just thinking about like artificial intelligence, it's if you're worried about automation, if you're worried about how the technology is evolving, I think we are in a very exciting time right now. And so, in my opinion, it's it's actually much better to embrace technology. So if you're actually interested in learning more artificial intelligence, if you're interested to code, if you're interested in learning how algorithms are formulated and what are the tools out there, it will actually help your fears in kind of gaining more experience and perspective of the new technology, because artificial intelligence is here to stay, and it will actually help us innovate some of the exciting things, and also create the coolest technology. So, yeah. Next slide, please. Okay. So, we've been talking about how to prepare yourself. So this is just an additional tips. Always be mindful of what are the things that you're writing on your resume. You could always polish and customize it. And there's a lot of resources online on how to write your resume. One thing that I've learned as a recruiter is, I really don't like lengthy resumes. So if you have 5 pages of resume, if you could actually condense it into like 2 pages maximum, that will actually help, hopefully help gain more traction in your application process. So just having, and also customizing your resume. So if you're applying to a certain role, and if you're targeting a certain company, you could always customize your resume and just make sure that you're actually tailor it based on the job description. And then, of course, be ready to speak about what's in your resume. One of the challenges as a recruiter for me is I have this really great resume in front of me. I call the candidate, and then when you ask questions about what's in the resume, and candidates struggle to articulate their experience. So just be ready to speak about what you've done, be truthful. One thing that it's also will also prevent you from landing great opportunity is owning up your skills, and also being clear of the things that you know and the things that you don't, and being also clear to employers that you're eager to learn, and you're ready to roll up your sleeves and get the job done. There's always a value, especially here in the US, of having that really genuine conversation to employers, and I find that refreshing. And then one of the idea around interviewing is responding in a STAR format. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So depending on the format of the interview, whether in the Philippines or whether abroad, being able to actually walk someone through your resume and your experience by being clear about, what are the situation, you are presented, what is the task, what is the action, and then what is the result. So I'm going to give you guys an example. So, maybe you will get a question, tell me about how you handle conflict. So that will be an interview question. And so thinking about how will you respond to that question in a STAR format. So you will start on sharing the situation. Like, what is the situation first of all? So I'm just gonna do a quick role play here. I'm going to answer the question and say, so the situation is, I have a coworker in the team that thinks that, so we have a project in our team. We're trying to implement a new software. And I have difficulty with one of my team members, he is not helping meet the goals. So that will be a situation. And as a project leader, my task is to help facilitate in our milestone and meet our goals. So that's a situation. That's your task. And so as a project leader, I pull aside my coworker and asked him, how can I help you for you to how can I help you to meet your goals? Like, what are the challenges that you have? And so I can have like a better understanding of what is, what's happening, how is his workload, how can I help take down obstacles for him? And as a result, that actually helped him get back on track, that helped him meet our deadlines, and eventually help us implement the software and the project that we're trying to do. So just having that clear answer of a certain question in a star format actually helps the employer understand the situation, what is your task, what the action you took, and the result. And then in an interview, it's really great and helpful if you could highlight your interpersonal and technical skills. So depending on the job that you're trying to get, and depending on the interview format, you could always highlight your communication skills. You could always highlight your technical skills, and always connect those skills back to the job description. Like, what are the job description was asking? What does the job needs? How will this role will be successful? So going and tying those experience back to the requirements in the job description will actually help the employer kind of realize the skills that you bring to the table. And then connect your passion to the mission of the company. I really like to be part of a mission-driven company. I'm in a company right now that's actually rethinking the farming process from start to finish. And I'm not sure if you heard about the challenges of climate change. Climate change is here, and companies like the company that I'm in right now is actually helping solve that. And so if you're interviewing to a certain company, or if you're targeting, if your dream job is to be, for example, to be hired by Google, learn about Google's mission and vision and how they're actually executing on those, and then tying those back to your skills and experiences. And then in an interview, you always have to prepare your questions. That actually shows the employer that you're interested in the role, that you've done your homework, and you're actually curious. If you don't have questions in the interview, they might think that you're not really engaged, or you didn't really understand the details of the role. So just and that interview is always a two-way. It's always two-way street. The employer wanted to get to know you. You wanted to get to know them, making sure that it's a great fit. You don't want to see yourself in a job that you don't like or you don't love. And so making sure that you ask really pointed questions around culture, around people, about opportunities. What are the career opportunities that this position offers? What are the internal mobility look like? For example, like, what are the promotional opportunities? What are the challenges of the role? What are they trying to accomplish in the first year? What are they trying to accomplish in the first 30 days? And you could always pull those questions back to your skills, and making sure that the employer understands the value that you're bringing to the table. Do you have any question at this point?
Sir Mark Alvaro has a question po, Miss. Since we're talking about challenge, as an HR person, what is your view about job elimination, especially to those companies having a difficulty coping up with the COVID-19 and to those people who were eliminated from their jobs?
Yeah. It's a challenging time. That's for sure. Losing your job is, especially if you know your job is your livelihood, if your job is actually if you're relying to pay your bills, and so there's a lot of like financial aspect that ties to your job, and that's the reality. And so at the end of the day, job elimination is something that it's out of your control. You cannot control how leaders will run their business. And if you find yourself in a situation where you lose your job, don't get discouraged. I know it's easy to say that, but that will actually give you an opportunity to either find a different role, or give you an opportunity to brush up on your skills. So don't get discouraged. Look for another position, see what's out there, and sometimes you have to be creative too. There's because of the dynamic of work is changing. There's always now that roles are much more accessible because of because employers are opening the roles online. There's always an opportunity for you to perhaps find an online job. So whatever the situation you're in, my message to you is to not get discouraged. Keep going, and be strong. I know this is a very challenging time, and there's definitely a lot of uncertainty, but stay positive.
Thank you so much, Miss.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so I know we've been doing Q&A along the way. Was there any other question for you guys that I can help answer at this point? And I hope this has been helpful. I'm gonna look at the chat, see if we have any questions. Yeah, feel free to, I'm not sure if you guys can unmute, but feel free to type any question. And I'm also interested to see what's your takeaway today. So, but let's give everyone a minute or so to type their question.
I'm going to share a question from Sir Dale. Sir Dale says, "Hi, ma'am. As you may know, Philippines is now being home to a lot of BPO companies. Clients are from different parts of the world, especially in the US. I'm just curious if BPO companies are affecting the US labor market, and do you have an idea how are the job seekers from the US reacting to this?"
Can you help me define what BPO means?
Business process outsourcing.
Got it. Yeah. This is my, and I wanted to answer this question in a lens of with the lens of recruiting. And I know for a fact there's a lot of, especially here in the US, there's a lot of outsourcing that's happening, whether in manufacturing, whether their customer service, and even people operations. There's everything is being outsourced. Companies are being smart right now on where they can actually save costs. So if they can save costs to put a certain functionality of their business somewhere else, they will always capitalize and leverage that. And so that, and in the Philippines has been one of the countries that I have seen so far that actually been benefiting a lot of this outsourcing business. You can see there's a lot of call centers in the Philippines that actually support big businesses here in the US. And I bet like manufacturing, like I know China is a huge market for outsourcing manufacturing. But I can also see a lot of the manufacturing has been outsourced to the Philippines. How the employers are reacting here is always a welcome. It's always a welcome change, depending on the strategy of the business. Whether they're trying to save costs or they're trying to save resources. It's always a strategy. And so, if you are a job seeker who find yourself supporting a company here in the US, maybe that will be an opportunity for you to explore to see if there's any opportunity for you to get a job here, or maybe improve or widen your career through BPO work opportunities.
Thank you, Miss. Again, we are opening the floor for an open forum. If you want to ask your question, feel free to do so. Chat here in this chat box, or you can also chat in our live pages, Facebook page.
And also, we encourage everyone na you can ask in Tagalog, ha? Para you are also, because Beethoven is a Filipino, so you can ask questions confidently or comfortably. All right? Thank you.
Yeah, don't be shy. And I hope you guys don't mind that I was actually speaking in English today. I know how to speak Tagalog. I know how to speak Waray. So it's just much more comfortable speaking in English just because of the intent and purposes of this presentation. But yeah, please don't be shy. If you wanted to ask your question in Tagalog, please do so.
Gina, you can proceed.
All right. I think no one would like to ask a question. I think they're shy, but I'm going to share my key takeaways from this event. What I've learned is how to be marketable. Especially, I'm trying to actually, if I may share my story, is that I was trying to find an internship, and I was able to find this company, this organization. Then I was actually very excited and very happy because I'm learning a lot. So I think that's one of the key takeaways is to volunteer as much as possible because you can put that in your resume actually. So if you have any key takeaways, you may also share your key takeaways now. Or if you still have any questions, feel free to do so to share your questions.
Awesome. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I've it's my honor, and thank you so much for hopping on a Sunday. I know it's Sunday in the Philippines, and so you might be in the middle of something on a weekend. So thank you so much, and yeah, really appreciate your time today, and I hope you find something useful out of this conversation, and have a great rest of your weekend.
I hope that we accommodate all of your questions, and thank you to Mrs. Beethoven for answering all of your questions. And to present her certificate, we may call on Ms. Kyle Chloe Francisco, Head of the Graphic Designer in the Human Resource Department and an Events and Training Manager. Ms. Kyle? All right. I think Miss Cal is not here, but I'll be the one who will read the certificate. Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is proudly presented to Mrs. Beethoven Yuson-Sabar for sharing their valuable knowledge as a resource speaker for international recruitment strategies, how to attract and retain the right top talents, held this 28th day of November. Thank you, Miss. Thank you, Miss Beethoven. And we like to really thank you for this wonderful opportunity to learn more about you, to learn more about the strategies on how to be more marketable and how to exceed in our job expectations. And of course, every event or webinar must come to an end. I would like to close this by sharing my key takeaways. My key takeaways is that we must prepare ourselves to be the best version of ourselves. It is not enough for us to be relaxed and we must always to challenge the status quo. And for the last time, we'd like to thank Ms. Beethoven for sharing her expertise with us. Wedding Supplier Association of the Philippines Incorporated would like to thank our following sponsors: Accounting Portal Philippines, Mobile Palenque, Philippine Virtual Expo, the Real Estate Directory, Philippine Mall Directory, Alabang Real Estate Directory, Philippine Hotels Directory, MedResults Medical Services, Pa-Home Service PH, Tulong ni One Foundation, and Online Pasulubong. To all the participants, please answer the evaluation form, as this will be the basis for us to know who are the recipients of the e-certificate, and follow the guidelines for claiming your e-certificate. For those participants who join us in our webinar entitled Recruitment Strategies, How to Attract and Retain Right Top Talents, this November 28th, Sunday, at 10 a.m. to 12 noon, together with our resource speaker, Mrs. Beethoven, kindly answer this evaluation form and don't forget to like and subscribe to our Facebook pages and YouTube channel, as this is also a requirement for you to claim your e-certificate. The evaluation form will be sent in the chat box for those who are in the Zoom. For our live audience, we'll post the evaluation form in Philippine Workshop and WSAP Internship Program Facebook pages. Another insightful and informative webinars was done today with the help of our speaker, Miss Beethoven. Miss Beethoven, we hope that all learnings and takeaways you've gained today will be a great help for you. Again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Once again, I am Chino, your host for this morning. Thank you everyone, and see you on our next webinar.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.